Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today in this video I'm going to be talking about planets in the 7th house and the indications they can have on a relationship. So just not based on what I'm saying can you finally be sure about relationships. There is a lot you have to see when you're seeing relationships in a chart. You have to see where the 7th house lord is and in what dignity, in which house the 7th house lord is. And so there's a lot you see. You see the Darakarka. The Darakarka is the planet which has the lowest degree, and so it signifies a spouse. You see what the Darakarka planet is, what all it signifies, the house it is in, the aspects on it, especially the Rashi aspects on the Darakarka planet. So there is a lot you see. You also see the Rashi in the 7th house. You see the planet in the 7th house. Again, you see aspects, and Rashi aspects also very important. You see the D9. So just to clarify, there is quite a bit that we have to see when we are seeing relationships. Plus the capacity of the person to be happy in a relationship is of course Venus and the ascendant, the moon. So there's quite a bit to be seen. But just from the planet in the 7th house, what kind of an indication we get is what I'm talking about in this video. And what I'm sharing you with is based on what the books say, what my gurus have taught me, and in fact I would like to be also sharing some suggestions that some of my gurus have taught me, which I have found very useful. So I'm just sharing what all I've learned and what all I feel has practically been useful for me. You guys can also share your thoughts with me about placements of planets in the 7th house. In fact, you can let me know in the comments and how things you see are working out for those planets and those charts. So I'll now talk about the first planet, which is, we will touch the Sattvic planets first. We'll do Sun, Moon and Jupiter, and we'll be doing all the planets. But generally the Sattvic planets will have a more positive effect on the 7th house. The Tamasic planets will have more of strain in relationships if there are Tamasic planets like Saturn, Mars, Ketu and Rahu. And if there are Rajas planets like Mercury and Venus, then expectations are much higher. So that is how basically we see, and you also will see the dignity of the planet in the house. But I'm just going to be touching the planet in the house and generally how this person can experience relationships. So let's suppose if the sun is posited in the 7th house, and so the spouse is going to come from a good family, like a royal family, a good background, from a very cultured family. So here the 7th house is very brightly lit, and so is the 1st house, because the sun is also aspecting the 1st house. So there is nothing hidden here. Everything is very open, and there is a lot of openness between the two of them. Though it's not going to be an easy relationship, because the sun is even though it is a Sattvic planet, it's a crude planet. So there is a lot of demand in this kind of a relationship. It's a demanding relationship. It's not an easy relationship. And the spouse will be the spouse will have high standards. The spouse will be very image conscious. The spouse would want to put the best foot forward in front of the other people, the rest of the society. So for the spouse, image is very important, and that can be one reason of discord here. And the spouse is like the sun. The spouse is used to getting things done his or her own way, and so there could be ego clashes. I've seen ego clashes, and I've practically seen charts. If the sun is in good dignity, then one of the partners tends to kind of accept this, and so the relationship goes pretty well. But the spouse would definitely expect things done in his or her own way, from the small things at home, like where a certain piece of furniture is placed, because they would be very conscious of the image in society, and they would be very conscious of how people come and see the way they live, and so they'd be very conscious, and they'd want things done their way. They are all about image, and they don't want to look bad in front of anybody. They don't want to look small in front of anybody. They always want to look like they're doing very well, that they're very royal, and they'd be open, they'd be straight, it's a positive relationship, other than the fact that the person who has the sun in the 7th house would feel that he is being dominated a little bit. He's being told how to do things according to his spouse, and so if he goes with the flow, then all is good, and if he doesn't, then there can be strong ego clashes. Of course, we'll have to see all the other placements, and we'll also have to see the ascendant. So how soft is the person's own personality, and how easily will he accept this kind of a relationship, and that's how the final trend would be. But generally, the spouse is going to be a little dominating and very conscious of their image, and the spouse is going to come from a good family, and it's a very open relationship. So okay, now we'll be talking about the second planet, which is Moon. Now this is also a Sattvic planet, so generally it's a good position having the Moon in the 7th house. It's a soft relationship, emotional relationship. There's a nice soft emotional connect between the two people. But since the Moon is always changing, every day it's growing or it's decreasing, it's waxing or waning, like we like to call it. So the relationship there's going to be a lack of stability. I have seen a few charts with Moon in the 7th house, and such people, even at a later age, once they've matured, once they've even crossed the age of 50, they've been married for many years, both the partners will continue having the ups and downs, will be emotional towards the relationship. So the smallest of inconvenience from there will not be tolerated, and so there is a lack of stability. I feel when Moon comes in the 7th house, there's a lack of stability, and for small issues also, the person is ready to even think about separating. So the Moon being there, generally the connect is good. Both the people take care of each other. The spouse is soft, the spouse is an emotional person, there is a good connect, but there is a oversensitivity in the relationship, and these people will see a lot of up and down in the relationship, and they will also look for a relationship. If the person is not in the relationship, they will look for a person that they fall in love with, that they will look for a very romantic kind of a relationship. I've seen something that the mind really can connect to, and so after a while, relationships get a little what is that word, in everyday life, things get so boring sometimes that these people don't accept that boringness. They want things to still feel emotional and sensitive and lovey-dovey, but that's not how it works. So that is why these people have ups and downs. They're constantly talking about what happened and what the other person did, and the slightest of things that the other person does will impact them a lot. So even though it's a nice soft relationship, the person who has it in the 7th house is going to be oversensitive about his relationships, and there's going to be constant thoughts about the relationship, how the smallest thing that the person said has hurt him or her, and what should he or she do about it. So there's less of stability when Moon is in the 7th house. Another thing that one of my gurus told me, and which I have found true in many charts, is in fact you guys can give me feedback. You can check it up in your own charts or charts of people that and then let me also know if this is working for you. That whenever there is the Moon in the 7th house, there would always be an interference from a lady figure in the relationship. There could be a mother or a mother-in-law, somebody that would be interfering in the relationship, so they would feel a lot of interference. So I found this true to be in a few charts. You guys can see it for yourself. So now I'm going to be talking about Jupiter. So now when Jupiter comes in the 7th house, and so in case of Jupiter, there is a saying in Hindi which is called diya tale andhera, means when you light a lamp, so the place is lit up, but under the lamp there is darkness. So Jupiter lights up where Jupiter sees or aspects, but Jupiter, in whichever house Jupiter is posited, Jupiter is Brahma, and he's in a state of meditation, if we'd like to imagine it like that, and he's not worried about where he's sitting, about his own home, so he blesses wherever he aspects. So Jupiter in the 7th house, I have personally found this to be true. Gives delay in marriages. There is a delay. A lot of times there is a delay. The second thing is, if somebody has a Jupiter in the 7th house, they would want a spouse who is very, good in every which way, not just the looks. Somebody who has good education, somebody who has good morals and ethics. So he would really look for such a person, a perfect person. And that is one of the reasons I've seen many a times that such people don't get married. There are many people I've come across who have Jupiter in the 7th house and they don't get married because the expectations from a spouse is somebody like Jupiter, somebody who is pure, good, knowledgeable in every way, who is of a high caste. So all the good things, good education, good caste, good status in society. So many times these people don't get married. There is another thing one of my gurus shared with me when I was learning astrology, which I found to be very true in some of the charts. So such people, once they get married, and even before they are married, because remember, Jupiter sitting in the 7th house is aspecting the 1st house. So these people tend to be quite spiritual themselves, and once they are married, one of the partners will be very spiritual, too spiritual in fact, and there could be problems in the physical side of the relationship. So one of them could be too much inclined into spirituality, and there could be problems in the physical life of the physical side of the marriage. And one of the remedies, in fact one of the don'ts that I was told, and I've passed it on to many other people when I've seen Jupiter in the 7th house, I've tried to pass it on to other people, and but I don't know if it's helped them out, but I've definitely seen Jupiter in the 7th house makes the person very spiritual, makes the person who has Jupiter in the 7th house very spiritual. And so what one of my gurus told me is that such a person should not have a mandir at home, because such a person has a tendency of being very spiritual, which I have really seen. They have a tendency, if you have a Jupiter in the 7th house, you would naturally move towards spirituality. And if you have a mandir at home, this is the logic that I was given, and it did make sense to me. So is already drawn towards spirituality, and if they have a small temple or a mandir at home, they would be completely engrossed towards that. They would have even a bigger bent of mind towards that, and getting married for them would become an even bigger difficulty. So I actually have seen that spirituality does come very easy to people who have Jupiter in the 7th house. So I have suggested this, not to have a mandir at home or a temple at home, to go to a mandir, a temple outside, and then pray. You have praying at home is perfect, but what I was told is that it's better not to have a temple at home, because then the spirituality factor of the person is going to be increased manifold, and that would be a problem in getting married. So yes, I've seen such people are very spiritual, and once they get married, their expectations from their spouse would go on increasing. They would want their spouse to always be very knowledgeable, to be very moral, to be very have higher knowledge, to be like a guru, to be like Jupiter. So the expectation from the spouse would always be like that. So even though the Sattvic planets are easier having in the 7th house, all three of them have their flip side. Now let's talk about the tamas planets, the tamasic planets, which are Mars, Saturn, Rahu and Ketu. So having Mars in the 7th house, Mars is where the action is in our lives, basically. So if Mars is in the 7th house, the action is in the 7th house. So especially if Mars here is afflicted, firstly, it will bring a lot of aggression in the relationship. There could be a lot of fighting between the couple. There could be a lot of aggression in the couple. The spouse could be hot-tempered, and definitely, since Mars is posited in the 7th house and aspecting the ascendant, the native also, this is a Manglik dosha also that we're talking about. So the person also could be a little hot-headed. So there will be a lot of fighting if Mars is in bad dignity. If Mars is with other malefics, the tendency will be there. Sexual instincts of the person are going to be much higher. So the native is going to be sexually very inclined. So if Mars is afflicted here, then chances of multiple relationships are quite high. And if Mars is very well placed, let's suppose it's an exalted Mars, it's very well placed in good dignity and good aspects, in that case the spouse will have great administrative skills. The spouse will know how to manage things, and the spouse will be very quick at getting things done. So such a native should just leave things to his spouse, So it's like, okay, fine, all this you go to get done. You know how to get this done, you get it done. So leave things to your spouse, because your spouse just knows how to get things done if Mars is there in good dignity. But if Mars is in bad dignity, there's going to be aggression, like I said, and the sexual desire is going to be very high. Even in good dignity, the sexual desire will be very high. But if it's afflicted, and if all other things also are supporting, then a lot of relationships also could be possible for such a person. And if Mars is in the 7th house, then you should actually get the charts matched before getting married. Well, let's talk about Saturn. So if Saturn is in the 7th house, so Saturn is a malefic, but Saturn gives a lot of strength to relationships. Saturn is slow. So the first thing we come to know from here is there could be delay. It's slow, so everything will happen slowly for the person. There's going to be a lot of delay, so probably the marriage will be late. Second, Saturn is a very practical planet, so this is going to be a very practical relationship. It's going to be based on a lot of practical things, and there could be less of warmth, because Saturn is a very dry planet. It's not a very warm planet. It's not a very emotional planet. In fact, Saturn is a planet for sadness, for distress. But it's not that the relationship will have sadness and distress, but it is going to be a more practical relationship. And Saturn is a very slow but strong planet. It's the significator of iron. It also suggests that it's going to give a very strong bond. So delay, but strong and practical. So it's really not bad. And if Saturn is exalted, in many cases I've seen, if Saturn is exalted, this could also be a very early marriage. So exalted Saturn could also suggest a very early marriage. Debilitated Saturn could suggest a very late marriage. And it also can suggest the partner being mature mentally, as a person being mature, very mature, maturer than the native himself. And the partner could also probably be age wise more elder to the native. So if you are a man and if you have Saturn in the 7th house, your spouse or your wife could be a couple of years or a few years elder to you in age, or the spouse would be elder to you mentally. You're more mature mentally, like we said. But it's a very strong and stable relationship if Saturn is in good dignity. But if Saturn is not in good dignity, then there definitely can be a separation in this relationship. And if Saturn is there in the 7th house and one of the partners is traveling for work, I think that's a great thing. So if you have Saturn in the 7th house, and if you're traveling a lot, or if your spouse is traveling a lot and you don't like the idea, it's best to accept it, because Saturn suggests some kind of a separation. So if the indication is completed that way, though, it's great to have it completed that way, then have mental distances between the two of you. So there will be some kind of a distance. There can be a separation if Saturn is in bad dignity. So if one of you is traveling, I think that's a great way to be. So let's say if Ketu is in the 7th house. So Ketu is firstly a planet of the past, something that you've done in the past. So such people, it's not easy for them to connect in relationships. They somehow have, whenever I do any series on Ketu, then I'll explain this better, but they have already had a great relationship in the past. So in this birth, they probably may not be, if you have Ketu or whoever has Ketu in the 7th house, they may not have a very warm kind of a relationship. They will not know how to bring in the warmth in the relationship, especially in the physical side of the relationship. But in case of the nodes, we have to look at the dispositor. So you will have to see where the dispositor is posited, the aspects on the dispositor, the aspects on Ketu. Ketu being here also suggests a spiritual partner, a partner who is very spiritual. Of course, you will have to see the dispositor plus the aspects. Ketu being here also suggests, because Ketu is also, all darkness. Ketu is the significator of darkness. So Ketu being here also suggests that there could be things about the relationship that you may not know about. So it could be really good, your partner could be a very spiritual person, or the partner could be completely fooling you. So you may not know much about the partner at all. It could be either of the two, depending on the other conditions. Okay, now I'll talk about Rahu. Rahu in the 7th house, Rahu shows your obsessions. So Rahu in the 7th house definitely shows a lot of obsession for relationships. So here the chances of having multiple relationships are very, very high. Of course, there are other things also. Having Rahu in the 7th house also can bring in a lot of fame. But since we're only talking about relationships, Rahu in the 7th house, Rahu is an illusion. So you cannot trust relationships. The person who has Rahu in the 7th house may not be able to trust in people very easily. And many a times such a person's trust would be broken, and such a person also would be possibly be having multiple relationships, because there is an obsession about it, multiple physical relationships. And of course, again, you will have to see aspects on Rahu, especially the Rashi aspects, and aspects on the dispositor of Rahu, the Lord of the 7th house, and the other conditions as well. If the ascendant is really strong, if Jupiter is very well placed, because Rahu is also Rahu signifies breaking taboos. Rahu signifies something that is alien, something that is beyond our culture. So it suggests breaking barriers and trying other things and going beyond the cultural ties. So Rahu here also signifies getting married to a foreigner, not necessarily a foreigner, could be somebody from another religion. So somebody that you just don't understand, somebody alien, somebody outside your own culture. So Rahu here also can signify that. Now I'm going to be talking about the Rajas planets, Mercury and Venus. Well, Mercury is a good planet to have in the 7th house. Mercury here shows a partner who is very communicative, partner who is very friendly, partner who likes to socialize a lot. This person may have a lot of friends. This person may like to socialize quite a bit. And the relationship also will be based on friendship. More than the physical side. Because remember, Mercury is an impotent planet. So more than the physical part of the relationship, this relationship would be based on friendship. The friendship element would be very strong. And the partner would be very tactful in their speech, very diplomatic. They will know how to handle the relationship. So generally this will bring harmony and peace in the relationship. And but having Mercury there, because Mercury is a Rajas planet, so the person who has Mercury in the 7th house may also be interested in multiple relationships. And so now we're going to be talking about Venus. Having Venus in the 7th house again is good for the relationships, because this is a very soft planet. It shows a lot of sweetness in the relationship. It shows being blessed by a very good looking partner. You will be blessed with a good looking partner, and the relationship will be very sweet, good bond, good harmony. But Venus here also shows, especially if there is affliction, Venus here also shows whenever, so this is something that one of my gurus taught me, and you can check it out for yourself. Whenever the couple is doing great, now whenever a third person, they come across a third person who is very good looking, so the partner, one of them can stray. So as long as the two of them are doing well, they'll do well. But the chances of getting strayed when they see somebody very beautiful are there. So if the native has Venus in the 7th house, the chances of them getting strayed by other pretty faces are going to be pretty bright. Again, depends on the dignity of Venus. Again, depends on a lot of other things, like the dispositor of Venus, ascendant, the native himself, the personality of the person himself. And like I said, Jupiter also signifies traditions. If your 9th house is very strong, if Jupiter is very well placed, Jupiter is aspecting Venus, then this all may not happen. But if Venus is in bad dignity, afflicted, then one will be attracted to other people as well, in spite of being married. And especially two pretty faces, whenever they see a pretty face, they'll feel attracted to them, and they themselves will be blessed with a very good looking partner. So that is all that I wanted to share with you about the planets. I think I've covered all of them, but you guys can give me your feedback. Whatever you see in charts, you can give me your feedback. That'll be great. We'll see you in the next video now. Bye bye.